Well, this is part 3 in our final part of our video tutorial series on stream ecology and how to process the data. Finally, I wish to show everyone how to conduct a t-test. And the big question is there a difference in the abundances of organisms in riffles and pools or not? Well, the t-test will actually help us answer that question. So with a simpler example, I have two areas, area 1, area 2, with some abundances listed here. Now these could be anything. They could be organisms of any type, but here is just an example. So area 1 and 2 could be seen as riffles and pools. So these are our two blocks that we're going to test. Now let's go check out the syntax of the t-test in Excel. So here is the function name. It's just t-test, and it has 4 parts to it. It has 2 arrays, and the arrays are really just your data sets arranged either in columns or in rows. It's just more common to have data arranged in columns. So basically array 1 and array 2 in our case will apply to the riffle column and the pool column, each independently selected. The third parameter is the tails, and the type of test is the fourth parameter, which we'll get to in a minute, these two last items here. So we're really looking to see whether or not, in the case of the null hypothesis, the means of the two data sets are the same. In other words, there is no statistically significant difference between the abundances of organisms found in riffles and pools. On the other hand, the alternative hypothesis states that the means of the two data sets are not the same, and there is a statistically significant difference between the abundances of organisms found in riffles and in pools. So if we go back to the demonstration here, you can set up your t-test output really anywhere in a sheet. Of course, it's just convenient to locate it as close as possible. So for this example here, look at the syntax. It's just equals t-test, open parentheses. Array 1, this A2 to A8 is this. So you would just highlight this whole region here. The second array is area 2, which is this B2 to B7. Notice that with a t-test, you do not need equal numbers of data points in these arrays. So it's perfectly acceptable to have different numbers of data points. With some statistical tests, that's not true, but with a t-test, it's okay. And we actually want a two-tailed test of type 3. We got into the details of this in lab, so I'm not going to repeat them here. I just want to show you how to actually do the t-test in Excel. So actually we're going to, we don't want that. No, we don't want that. Okay, that's fine. Control Z solves everything, doesn't it? Yes. Control Z, yes, okay. So be careful when you're entering formulas, and because once you're in, I'm kind of glad this happened, because say you have your cursor inside the formula area and you go around and clicking around, it will actually start inputting those cells. So be careful of that. So I'm kind of glad that happened. So you do that and you press enter and you get a number. Now this number, this function in Excel does not return a value for the t-statistic. All right, as you would normally, you would get a t-statistic that you would have to look up on a t-table to see if you could meet or exceed that. But here with Excel, instead it generates a probability, which is a value between 0 and 1, and this probability is the probability that the null hypothesis is true. Now, if this number is below our preferred alpha value, and in this case is 0.05, right? Because we're trying to test this at the 95th percentage level of significance, as most of these biological tests are done at 95% level of significance. So if this value is below 0.05, then we reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. So in this case, there is a difference between these two data sets in terms of their means, because our number here, 0.00427, is pretty far below 0.05. So that's how you interpret the t-test results. Now what I've done here is something a little bit different. You can do this or not. The syntax here, if you want to do something fancy, in the cells beneath it, you could do this if statement here, if t-test, and I've actually renamed this cell t-test. So if the results in that cell t-test are less than or equal to 0.05, print this, means are different. Otherwise, print no difference between means. So you can do that, it's an option, it's kind of cool, just to show you what Excel can actually do. So there's the syntax for our t-test. Two tails with this option here being 3, meaning that we're assuming that there is an unequal variance between the two arrays. And that's how you do a t-test in Excel. So for the purposes of our stream data, say you've got all of this that you want to test, so array 1 will be pools, so you would, once you have the formula in there, it would be, say you want to have the output right here, it would be equals t-test. Array 1 would be the pools, so you would select that, not including the column header, just the numbers, comma. Array 2 is not that. Be careful where you click, because once you're inside the formula editing area, any cells that you click will get input, so be careful. Array 2, it would be the riffle, so you would go ahead and select the whole range down that column pertaining to riffles. Comma. So remember, it's a two-tail test, and we want this to be of type 3, which means that we have assuming an unequal variance between these two groups of data. Close parentheses. Now I'm not going to actually press enter here because I don't want you to see the results of this yet. I want you to do it, and I don't want to give away the punchline, so to speak. So I want you to do this, see what number you get, and again, referring back to this, if it's less than 0.05 or equal to it, then the means are different. Or if it's above 0.05, the means are not different. So that's how you do it. Email me with questions, everybody.